Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's special recorded L10 webinar, Bend Don't Break, Achieving Results Through Flexible and Agile Learning Programs, sponsored by CMR Institute. This is a pre-recorded program that we're presenting to you today, but you do have the ability to ask questions of our audience. In fact, I'll move forward to the housekeeping items and show you just how to do that. We are planning a 30-minute session for you on this recorded webinar. Any questions you have, please do type them into the questions module there on the control panel and hit the send button. We'll receive those questions offline and we will get answers back to you within 24 hours. So please do send in any questions you have throughout today's webinar. And again, they will be received and we will connect with you on those. Today's webinar, as I mentioned, is being recorded and it will be available on demand in the L10 Self-Directed Learning Library. Our sponsors, CMR Institute, are also going to be sending you a follow-up email with a link to the recording as well and some other resources as well. So look for that email and follow-up from CMR Institute. And speaking of follow-ups, as you leave today's webinar, please do look for a survey link on a separate browser window. Take a few moments and look for that survey link and share your thoughts with us. We appreciate your feedback on these programs as we produce these webinars for you. And along those lines, my email address is showing here on the screen. If I can help with anything, certainly don't hesitate to ask. Okay, with all that said, I'm going to turn things over to our speakers today. You're going to be hearing from Dr. Barbara Lockee, Professor of Instructional Design and Technology at Virginia Tech, and Michelle O'Connor, President and CEO of CMR Institute. I'm going to turn things over to Michelle now to get us started. Michelle, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thanks to all of you for being with us today for this webinar. I'd like to start out by thanking Barbara Lockee for being with us today. Barbara, as Tim just said, she's a professor of instructional design and technology at Virginia Tech, but she's also a fellow in the Provost's office where she supports faculty development. And she also teaches courses on instructional design and distance education. Her research interests focus on design issues related to online and technology-mediated learning. Dr. Lockee is also a member of CMR Institute's Board of Directors. Welcome, Barb.
Thanks, Michelle. It's a pleasure to join you all here today.
Thank you. Let's jump in. So we all know that the sheer amount of information that's available today at the touch of a finger or the saying of a word is truly amazing. Highly intelligent and endlessly connected search engines, along with modern and even futuristic interface designs, make finding information easier than ever. For example, you probably know that James Monroe was the fifth president of the United States. But do you know who his vice president was? If not, you could probably say, hey Google, hey Siri, hey Alexa, who was James Monroe's vice president? And you'd get the answer instantaneously. And oh, by the way, if you didn't search for it already, the answer to our VP question is Daniel D. Tompkins. So the technological advances and the ability to find any piece of information quickly has equipped modern learners with a unique mindset. I can know anything, anytime, anywhere. Said another way, I don't really need to know everything. I just need to know how and where to find it when I need it. And so this has become the expectation of the modern learner for both personal and professional learning. And I think that the difference between learning in our personal and professional lives has become a source of frustration for many modern learners. The particular digital divide may lead many to say, hey Alexa, how can I find everything I need in my personal life, but it's not so easy to find in my professional lives? And that's a fair question. So as we look at learning in the flow of work, you may have heard of Josh Barson's concept of learning in the flow of work. It's a confluence of current work environments, cutting-edge technologies, and modern learner expectations. And all of these have led to the desire, and in many cases, insistence for relevant, up-to-date, and concise information where and when learners need it. And if we don't provide learners with the information where and when they need it, they'll go out and find it themselves. And many times the information may not be accurate or it may not be what we want them to find. So the idea of a more flexible, agile, learner-centric experience not only gets at what learners want, learners want, but it also achieves broader company goals of trained, knowledgeable, and skilled employees who operate more efficiently and more effectively. In the next few minutes, we're going to take a closer look at flexible and agile learning, what they are, and how they can impact personal learner outcomes and business outcomes. So let's go ahead and get started. So Barb, when we think about the word flexibility, many people might think of a component of physical fitness that has significant positive effects on the body. So for example, we know that flexibility improves mobility and movement and posture, and it may reduce the risk of injury or muscle soreness. It even leads to a better overall shape, if you will. So in terms of learning flexibility, what is it and how can it improve the shape of business?
Good. Well, Michelle, flexible learning refers to the ability to customize the learning experience with choices related to location, pace, delivery mode, and even content. Flexible learning has been with us for a while through e-learning and blended learning approaches, offering flexibility in time and place, but has really taken off a lot for businesses lately in new and different ways in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely. And I know that many learning experts feel the pandemic really accelerated, validated the digital transformation to a place of learning flexibility. Do you think, what do you think that COVID-19 showed us, Barb, about learning flexibility?
Well, I think the impact of COVID-19 on the delivery of learning experiences makes me think about the old adage, necessity is the mother of invention. While e-learning and blended learning have been a feasible delivery approach for a couple of decades, the imperative we've had to shift nearly all training experiences to remote or blended approaches really forced our learning and development community to rethink what's possible and conceptualize new ways to adapt instruction in order to accommodate the constraints we're working in now of not being able to do business as usual. And maybe it even gave us some freedom to try some things we wouldn't have otherwise, like providing more learner control over content choices or providing a greater variety of ways to attain targeted skills and knowledge. And also ways to measure learning that are creative and new, for example.
Yeah, that's good examples. So structurally speaking, how can flexible learning be operationalized?
Well, there are different ways that we can approach the design of flexible learning experiences. And we can think about them in terms of the where, when, how, and what aspects of learning. For example, in terms of where, changes in physical location of training have been a given for us due to the impact of the pandemic. But we can also take the opportunity to extend flexibility related to location by making our learning experiences more mobile. Because thinking about a given day, an employee might be able to sit down at their home office and engage in a learning experience on their desktop computer, but then maybe need to travel to a physician's office later in the day or to school to pick up their kids. And in that transition, they might have some available time to complete another bit of the instruction on their phone or their tablet or laptop. So having the ability to change location would support the notion that you just mentioned a bit ago, Michelle, learning in the flow of work. And I know your team strives to build your content so that it is accessible across platforms, which is helpful. And then with regard to the when of learning, we can think about extending flexibility through growing our asynchronous learning experiences. So this permits the learner to complete activities at a time when it's convenient. And there are times, though, that synchronous instruction and interaction might be important or even imperative. And so even in these cases, there might be circumstances when someone cannot participate due to a scheduling conflict. So it's helpful to record these experiences and make them available asynchronously.
Absolutely. So during the first few weeks of the pandemic, it was amazing how companies moved so quickly to adopt flexible learning programs. We know that some of our clients accelerated programs such as career development programs that had previously been planned for later in the year, while others chose this sort of pause to really upskill their reps in areas that had been previously identified but maybe not prioritized. And, like many of you, I think, in a few short weeks, CMR, we had expanded our offerings to areas like telehealth and virtual selling. We had also onboarded a number of new clients and supported more than 4,000 learners who took more than 16,000 learning experiences, all in a matter of about 8 weeks or so. So I think that we all really learned a lot about flexibility and agility so far in 2020, for sure. Okay, so the where and when are clearly important, but when it comes to flexible learning, there's actually more to it than just delivery and structure, right? It seems that flexibility can be created in the design and implementation of learning solutions as well. So what would you say are some of the functional ways that to bring flexibility to learning design?
Well, some specific ways we can think about to bring greater flexibility really focus on the treatment of the content from an instructional design perspective. So, for example, using a micro-learning approach to make learning opportunities more limited in scope and size can enhance the feasibility of the learning experience. Say having 3 20-minute modules to complete seems much more possible for someone who's very busy instead of thinking about having to sit down for an hour. It's a matter of fitting into a busy schedule and being able to come and go as needed, and particularly given the likelihood that the demands are going to change on their schedule during the day. And then another way that flexibility can be built into what instructional content is offered. So allowing learners to choose from a variety of different learning resources, whether it's videos or podcasts or multimedia programs. Having these different formats can help maintain attention and provide a sense of ownership too in the learning experience. And having these choices also aligns well with what we know about human learning. Learners each have individual preferences in different forms of information, so offering a variety of instructional formats can help match content to those individual preferences.
Absolutely. So how can design lead to personalized learning, Barb, and why is that important?
Providing choice in terms of content can lead to more personalized learning. So this kind of freedom is known to enhance motivation and engagement because of the control that a learner has over being able to address their own perceived learning needs. And so permitting learners to select coursework from a curated content set is a good example of flexible design approach. And choices can be aligned with targeted learning outcomes so that you have some assurance that learning needs are going to be met not only for the learner, but also for the organization. And so we have an example here on coaching employees from your content library, Michelle, a set of 5 lessons in this particular module where a new hire might need to complete all of these lessons, to gain the necessary skills and knowledge. But a more seasoned employee may only need to develop their skills related to giving and receiving feedback, so they can go straight to that lesson and complete it and save time and not have to work through the entire module, and therefore having a more personalized learning experience.
Absolutely. I think in our world, flexible learning also helps trainers to take a more role-based approach to a specific content area or a learning pathway, if you will. So, for example, on the topic of triple aim, companies may have the reps take a full module on these concepts, whereas for roles like account managers, we know that really even shorter chunks, so even 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, micro design is really important. So I think that learning flexibility can help training organizations in a lot of different ways. So when we think about agility training for fitness, we tend to think about drills that improve flexibility. We think about how it helps the body to maintain proper posture and movement during advanced and sometimes unexperienced moves, right? So for me, that seems like the ability to achieve your desired outcomes, a lot like the ability to achieve your desired outcomes in the face of uncertainty. So unplanned environmental changes or strategic shifts, for example. Am I thinking about that right, Barb? And if so, how does it differ from flexible learning?
That's a great question, Michelle. Yes, you are thinking about learning agility correctly. It's a personal characteristic of a learner and one that reflects the ability to adapt well to ambiguity and change, and which, as you know, has been especially critical recently in adapting to all the changes we've gone through with the pandemic, the constantly changing nature of our workplace today. So, and to answer your question about the difference between learning flexibility and learner agility, I would describe learning flexibility as a feature of the learning design. So the choices that learners are afforded, like we've just described, like how, when, where, and what they're able to learn. And then learning agility is a learner trait. So I should also say that agility aligns well with your fitness metaphor. And we all have strengths and limitations in terms of our personal characteristics. And agility is one trait that can be developed through training. So that's really good news.
Absolutely. So how can learning agility help organizations achieve their outcomes?
Well, learning agility is important, especially now, because employees must be responsive to their own professional development needs in order to most effectively address the needs of employers, especially in this current climate, which demands different kinds of skills and knowledge, and these demands are also very much in flux. So it's important that employees can perceive needs as well as take initiative to pursue the development of these necessary competencies if the situation they're in requires these new abilities. So I'd say learning agility is viewed as a power skill in the workplace and ones that employers are seeking, especially now more than ever as they hire new colleagues and also seek to further develop employees across the career trajectory.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, in my experience that learning agility can also lead to credibility. So for example, reps face uncertainty in their daily lives every day. They may walk into a physician office or a hospital expecting to see a doctor and instead be directed to a patient care coordinator or an office manager, all of whom have really different needs. So being able to flex there in the moment and have the ability to meet those specific needs, I think really lends itself to credibility as well. So let's move on and talk about stretching. So I think that what we know is the pandemic has also produced a demand for skills-based learning, both retraining and upskilling. And I think high unemployment across many sectors is going to continue to drive some of those needs. But I think learners themselves are also going to want to learn new skills to kind of insulate themselves from some of those unpredictabilities that they face. And companies, I think by the same token, are going to be looking for highly skilled and in many cases reskilled or upskilled employees to fill critical positions. So, and prepare them for what comes next. So for learners, it's become truly difficult to know what knowledge and skills that they're going to need in the future. And I think that, things are changing so quickly. So for this reason, you mentioned power skill development, Barb. I think that many organizations are turning to that power skill development. What is it and why is it so important for organizations?
Well, I'd say that power skills can be defined as a core set of interpersonal skills, sometimes called behavioral skills. And these kinds of skills are required to be successful particularly in constantly changing demands of the workplace, right? So now more than ever, power skills have superseded technical skills due to the changing nature of business. These skills need to be transferable across settings and different activities. So, some examples might be agility, like we were just talking about, and the ability to prioritize work and manage your time effectively, to work in teams, or communicate effectively across business contexts, having an enthusiasm for and skill for problem solving, and also maintaining a growth mindset. These are a few examples.
Yeah, great examples. And how are power skills useful to organizations and businesses?
I think because these skills are needed across job contexts, power skills are useful because they are transferable. So, for example, the ability to engage as a team member or adapt to changing priorities are skills that are important in many job settings. So let's say a need arises for immediate attention to a particular task. Learners with these skills are able to transition quickly, and businesses benefit through being able to quickly respond to that given need. And this scenario could play out with regard to both short-term needs or longer-term distributions of effort that to realign with evolving demands in an organization.
Absolutely. I think, as you've said, indeed, it is a really good time to be both flexible and agile when it comes to the unknown race that's ahead of us, right? I think from the perspective of learning strategy and results, a major shift is occurring towards learning that is, easily accessible and always available, curated and personalized to both the learner and their experience levels, and focused on durable knowledge and transferable skills, as you mentioned. I think that these features not only provide learners with learning the way that they want it, but it also prepares them and their companies to lead for, what comes next, to prepare them for leadership roles or to take on other opportunities within their organizations. So to wrap up today, I wanted to leave you with some key ways to future-proof your business through learning agility and flexibility. So we've got seven key points. And the first is build a one-stop shop. So we know that if we don't give our learners a single source of truth, that they'll go out and try to find the information somewhere else, or they won't find it at all. So we don't want them Googling things and finding things that may not be accurate. So having that one-stop shop is really important. And then secondly, whether learners are in the office or in their homes or in a coffee shop, learning in the flow of work, can't happen unless the necessary resources are available all the time. So really anytime, anywhere, 24/7, especially today. Engage learners and respect their time. I think that we know employees don't have a lot of time to devote to dedicate to learning, and design can play a huge role in their ability to find and utilize the necessary information, right? So I think micro-learning offerings and curated content for specific needs and learner groups can not only help ensure learners find exactly what they're looking for, but also find it exactly when they need it, which might be a very critical moment. And so our next, our fourth key is to always offer relevant and up-to-date content. We know that all the content in the world doesn't matter if it's not relevant and it's not kept up to date. So making sure that, one of the promises that we make to our clients is that as the market shifts and as things change, that we'll keep our content up to date. And I think that that's a real critical focus area for all of us. And then providing, personalized learning experiences. When it comes to learning, we all know that one size doesn't fit all, and adding in various formats, learning pathways that are segmented by both, roles and experiences, and optional learning opportunities are all ways that we can promote learning and promote personalization of learning. And personalization, it's a great way to meet individual needs, but it's also a great way to meet the defined needs of the organization, which is critically important. So clearly knowledge is important, but what you do with that knowledge is just as or even more important. So promotion of durable and transferable skill achievement develops highly capable employees that are ready to take on leadership roles within their companies, or take on new roles as they become available, which again helps to future-proof the organization. And lastly, preaching and teaching a growth mindset. I think, perhaps one of the most important things that we can teach our learners is that learning, help them to see that learning doesn't just happen until you're a certain age or until you reach a certain role. Learning is something that really is important throughout our lifetime, and we all have the ability to grow and to learn new things. And promoting agility helps to promote that growth mindset that we all want to see in our employees, and it also provides them with the knowledge and skills that they need to be more successful, both now and in the future. So to wrap up, I want to say we know that in many cases it's not always possible to accomplish all these critically important learning features on your own. You all have extremely busy and internal teams. So at CMR, we want to help. We have a dynamic content of customizable and relevant learning content, and we provide on-demand micro-learning content solutions that are curated to promote those personalized learning experiences that we talked about. So we'd like to extend our services to you and your team to be more flexible and agile to meet your needs now and into the future. And I'd also like to end by thanking our guest speaker, Dr. Lockee, today. Barbara, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing such great information. We sincerely appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. I enjoyed it.
Great. Well, Tim, I'm going to turn it back over to you to wrap up with a few housekeeping items. And I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time and attention. Thank you. Have a great day.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much. And Barb, thank you. Great presentation, great conversation, and thanks for sharing that with us. Anyway, just as we close out here today, I want to point out that just a few housekeeping items for you. I'd ask you to save the dates, June 7th to 10th, 2021. Those are the dates for the L10 2021 annual conference. We're optimistically hoping to get together in the Gaylord Rockies, the Denver area. If that doesn't happen, we'll get together virtually, but one way or the other, we are getting together on those dates, and you are cordially invited for the L10 50th anniversary celebration. Please do plan on joining us. You can visit l10conference.com or the L10 website for more information. Speaking of the L10 website, today's recording will be available there on the Self-Directed Learning Library. CMR Institute is also going to send you a follow-up email with a link to that recording, so look for that follow-up as well. Or you can find it through the website either way. Also on the website, you can feel free to check out some of our other recordings, our other webinars, our publications, our certificate series, our micro-learning programs, and of course our training partner directory. And finally, I'll invite you to join us for our next webinar. We'll be back here for the next LEF Learning Executive Forum series webinar on Wednesday, November 18th, talking about the future of sales engagement, what matters now. You can register for that webinar or others at the address shown here on the screen. Here's also the address for the Self-Directed Learning Library I mentioned, where today's webinar will be housed. And finally, there's my email address. If I can help with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. If you are still typing in a question for our speakers today, keep typing. We'll stay here another couple of minutes longer. You can also reach out through me too if you need to send a question in through our sponsors, our speakers today. But again, if you are typing, keep typing. Your questions will be received and will be responded to. So let me end with some final thank yous. Michelle and Barb, great presentation. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
And let me thank CMR Institute for sponsoring today's program and all. I'm going to also thank all of you in the audience for your time, attention, and participation in today's program. We look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Let me wish you a good rest of your day, a good rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.